Hi everyone, it's been a while. I felt the need to make this video though, so this could be the beginning of my return. A few months ago, my wife and I went to a wedding, and it was the first time we'd been invited to a wedding by a friend of ours who was a maker. And myself and a bunch of other makers went along, and we had a really good time. What was interesting to us is we suddenly discovered throughout the day that we could hear people in the background as we were walking past, individually or in groups, saying, "Oh, are they the maker people?" And as the day wore on and some more fluids were consumed, some of the people around us would approach and ask a bit more about what do we do and are we the maker friends? And two things struck us from this. First of all, a lot of people have no concept of what a maker is, or they don't quite understand the thing behind it. And the second one is, a lot of people seem to be hung up on the fact that they don't currently create or make things, and that they struggle to see how they can get to be a position where they can make things too. There seems to be this invisible barrier in the way that you have to have this huge scope of learning before you can get to a point where you can call yourself a maker. If we ask about what makes a maker, it's well worth looking up some of the videos that Kampf has done. She's put some clips there, and I'll put some links in the video below. Put simply, a maker or a creator or a creative person is someone who gathers together materials and creates something different from them. And this is actually a skill that everyone is inherently born with. I'm not saying that everyone's Michelangelo, I'm certainly not. But that doesn't mean that you can't make something out of some other things. All of us have been given, to various degrees, skills in which to create things from other things. And that is essentially what a maker is. They have taken that ability and they have developed it, much in the same way as you may have studied a particular thing at university and developed that skill set. We've just moved further down that path. Okay, so if that's the case, I'm sat here in my workshop, I'm surrounded by my tools and machinery, so it must be easy for me then to be a maker because I've got all this stuff and other people haven't. Well, yes, you could argue that's true, but having all the tools and machinery doesn't mean that you know how to use them. And learning how to use them can take a bit of time, certainly a bit of tuition, and a lot of trial and error. So the other thing to realise about being a maker or creative person is that failure is a good thing. Failure means that you learn something, whether or not it's how to join two pieces of wood together in a bad way or versus a good way, how metal reacts when you heat it too much and you can actually burn it, how a particular type of stitch works or doesn't work, or how this fabric doesn't work well with that fabric when you use that type of thread, how a different type of clay reacts to temperatures in a kiln or with a different slip or covering. All of these different things, I'm using very specific examples of people who create things with different mediums, but failure we face every day, and it's about how we interpret that failure and we use that information. So from a point of view of a maker skill set, it's taking things and making them into other things, failing during a process and learning from that failure so that when you come to it again, you do things in a different way and are able to succeed. That doesn't mean you'll fail once and then you'll succeed next time. Many of us have failed many, many times until we have either learned the correct skill, been shown the correct skill, read up on it, or muddled through and got there on our own. What I'm trying to say is that becoming a maker is like anything else, it's a process. There isn't a specific course or degree you can be on how to be a maker. You can go and do some blacksmithing courses, you can learn some woodworking, some furniture building, some wood turning, some ceramics, some painting, some artwork. There are all these different creative courses you can do, but all they're doing is giving you basic skill sets that you will need to develop on your own. The same with anything else. There isn't a right and a wrong answer to, if I do this, I'm not a maker, if I do this, I am a maker. So with that being said, how would you then go about developing this skill set? You're not sure if you want to pursue any particular avenue, blacksmithing, woodworking, sewing, etc. So you don't want to invest in all these tools and equipment and building a big workshop and finding you don't like it. What do you do? Well, many of you, hopefully if you're watching this, are living in a house or an apartment. And it's possible that you have never done any DIY around the home before. When we moved into our first house, it was a brand new house. I'd never done any DIY. I was not of the maker mindset at all. And I decided I wanted to put up a curtain rail, the rail above the window that you hang your curtains from. I'd never done anything like that before. I watched a YouTube video, looked it up in a DIY book, and 3.5 hours later there were approximately 12 holes in the wall where maybe 4 or 5 were needed, and the curtain rail was up and it was level enough, and I was stressed out and there was possibly a bit of swearing involved, but I still had 5 more windows to put curtain rails over. So what I did was I learnt from that failure and I adapted my technique, and I realised I would need a spirit level, so I borrowed a spirit level, and I realised that using a battery powered drill to drill into a masonry wall wasn't as effective as an electric drill, so I used one of those. And I learnt that when you drill into a masonry wall, it generates a lot of brick dust, so I got my wife to hold a vacuum cleaner next to it as I was drilling the hole to get rid of that rather than allowing it to land on the new carpet. And so there were many steps that I learned from just that one act around me. So if you are fortunate enough to live in your own home or apartment, there are probably a number of projects around that you could learn to do safely yourself. I'm not saying play with electrics. I'm not saying play with gas or in some cases even water systems. But I'm saying that you can take an interest and look around and pick a project. Maybe if you live on your own, you've been meaning to renovate a room, or if you live with a partner, they've been wanting to redecorate somewhere. You can have a look at those things and choose one project and say, that's what I'm going to do. And I know some people might be saying, well, that's all well and good, but unfortunately, particularly after the last few years we've had, my mental health is suffering. I don't trust myself in that situation, or I'm not confident to do that kind of thing on my own. That's okay. It's not a block for you to ever do anything or not to become a maker. It's a current limitation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because it helps you to adapt to work out how to get around things. There are makers out there who are very proficient, who are missing limbs, and they've worked their way around how to do things. They've not taken no for an answer. Regarding mental health, personal experience, wood turning for me I found very relaxing, because your brain struggles to think about anything else when you have a piece of wood spinning at over 1,000 revolutions per minute and you're introducing sharpened steel to it. It tends to focus what you're thinking about on that, and everything else just kind of melts and goes away. Some of the blacksmith friends I've got, I know if you're a little bit angry and you've heated some steel up, you start hammering on that steel, and the energy required to shape a piece of metal means that an awful lot of that frustration, you just don't have the energy for it anymore. So they can be a very helpful thing, as most of the maker skill set can be, to help deal with mental health as well. So don't accept those as limitations. Don't put those barriers in your way. So if you don't have a house or an apartment, or if you do but it's rented so you can't do anything with it, you don't want to do anything in the garden, it doesn't interest you, join a club. Find your local makerspace. These are things that are low budget and quite often free to a certain extent, full of people who want you to learn. They want to share their skill set with you, and there's nothing wrong with going along to a few events and then deciding that's not for you and moving on to something else. Find something you're passionate about, or that is interesting, or that can inspire you to move down one route. If you're fortunate enough to be able to, you could take a class at your local college. There's a lot of night school options for those people who are working full-time, or for those who aren't. There are other options there too. You can do things that are creative. It doesn't have to just be a creation of a physical thing. digital photography, film, editing, all of that kind of thing. Go out, create something, fail, learn from your failure, fail again, learn from your failure again, and just move forwards. Being a maker isn't about owning a workshop full of tools. Being a maker isn't about being part of some secret community that only discuss things on YouTube or on Instagram. Being a maker isn't even necessarily about sharing your thoughts and ideas with other people, although that's a good thing and is really cool to see. Being a maker is about being able to take some things and create something else. I can't let you know when my next video will be. I hope this has helped some of you. Check out some of the other stuff I've done, which is predominantly woodworking related, and I'll see you next time.